When breathing in too many pollutants, the chances of having asthma are increased, as well as the chances of getting asthma in the future. Follow each step to feel what it's like to have an asthma attack. Take a deep breath. Now, only letting out a little bit of air, try to take another deep breath. Take another deep breath. As of now, your chest should begin to feel tight, like there is someone pushing down on your chest. When having an asthma attack, a person wants to take in as much air as they can because they don't think they're getting enough air in their lungs. How does it feel to breathe air pollution then? Well, it smells like gas. It also smells like a burning fire or even burned plastic. How does burned plastic smell? Like fireworks. Smoky. Different scratch and sniffs will be placed on your desks. Each scent is different. You will either have fireworks or garbage. Both smells are used to describe pollution. Fireworks for the burnt plastic, garbage for the rotten feeling in your body. Scratch and sniff at your own will. I didn't even know it was happening. I grew up thinking that this was always how it was. For the sky to be eternally gray, to the nights to be filled with darkness. This was all I knew. I grew up in Linfuan, in the province of Shaanxi, China. When I woke up and I looked outside, the streets were blurred with gray. It was normal. I went and played with my friends outside, where it was always murky and dark. It wasn't until I was 24 and ready to give birth in the hospital did I ever realize that this wasn't normal. The earth wasn't naturally like that. Some people in the world wake up to a blue sky. The clouds aren't supposed to be black and gray, they're supposed to be white and fluffy. They're not supposed to hang right over your head or where you're walking. They're supposed to be up in the sky, not down here. I woke up to a gray sky. A sky filled with black clouds every morning. My life, my friends, my family, my home was hindered under a blanket of smog. I can only recall one moment where the sky was even a bit of blue. It was when one day the government had regulated how much we could drive in that week. After that week was over, you could see patches of blue in the sky. It was so strange, but that's surprisingly normal. And where I grew up wasn't normal. My daughter, Nina, was going to be born in a world where blue skies would be rare, where it was normal to wear a mask. I thought I was healthy. I thought it was normal to cough constantly, but it really wasn't. My daughter would end up having my same fate. All I wanted for her was to be healthy and have a good life. But the doctor told me she was going to be born with benign tumor, which would require surgery right after birth. It is a tumor in her lungs. And when the doctor told me the chances of her surviving the general anesthesia was small, I couldn't breathe. Nina, my dear child, had a possibility of dying right after birth. But guess what happened? I had received a gift. My daughter lived. She was so beautiful, so young and petite. I couldn't wait for my family to see her. In 2 days, I was able to leave. That's when I remembered, nothing ever goes perfectly. As I walked from my car to my apartment complex, I looked down at her in my arms. She was wheezing and coughed I concealed her nose and mouth with a handkerchief and snuggled her closely. I kept her inside. I rarely let her out. She would often sit on the windowsill and look outside at the world. One day, she asked me, "Can I go outside and play with the kids?" Her eyes began to glisten when I told her no. She continued saying, "All the other kids get to go out, and why not me? Is there something bad out there?" It took every part of me to tell her what it was. It was pollution. It was smog and the factories and the cars. Nina never understood. She would ask me every day, and I always turned her down. For 6 years of her life, the only friends she had were me and her cousin Kai. She would sit on the windowsill every day and look at the other kids play, and I couldn't decide what was more important, her happiness or her health. A year later, she was 7 and ready to take on the real world. I had to let her out eventually. I just didn't know how she would react. But after a month of going out every day, she was just like everyone else, coughing and wheezing. 3 years later, Nina was diagnosed with lung cancer. My little child had cancer. We had to get surgery at the nearby hospital. I watched her undergo anesthesia for the 2nd time in her life. Her last words before she knocked out, "Can I go play with the other kids after?" When the surgery was over, the doctors had something to show me. In a small Ziploc bag were these little black clumps. They looked like miniature pieces of coal, but they had metal in them. All they told me was that these chunks, those clumps, were in her lungs, stuck in between tissue of her lungs. In these chunks were metal and pollutants that floated around in the air. There wasn't much, but in just those 10 years of her life, she had taken in so much pollution. One day I woke up. I began to make breakfast. It was already 9 in the morning. It surprised me that she wasn't awake because she's an early bird. I went into her room. She lied still in her bed, dead. In an autopsy, they said it wasn't the lung cancer that killed her. It was a stroke. Pollution from the air can get into our blood too, but the doctors didn't think it would be likely. Yet, it killed her. This pollution, this smog, this is murder. It killed Nina. My baby, my child, the only one that I've ever known, the only child that I've ever held in my arms, and I never wanted to let her go. Yet, nearly 1 out of 8 people died from air pollution in 2012. Did I expect my daughter to be one? Did I want to let her go? I tried to protect her from the outside world. I tried to protect her from the smog. I tried to protect her from the real world. I wanted her to be happy. And where did that put her? In a grave.